first factor that influences our success is temperature of the environment. Now, we can't control the weather, obviously, right? And I sometimes wish I could, because we had a big snowstorm last night and it was cold. I was actually shivering in the night, hugging my hot water bottle and snuggling up to my husband to try to stay warm. So if you live in a cold environment like me, you're going to need to try to keep your starter a little bit warmer. I know room temperature, they say, is optimal. I'll often feed my starter and put it in a warm windowsill and let the sun shine on it and heat it up a little, and it grows a lot faster. So depending on where you live and your environment outside, it will affect inside. Even though we set the temperature of our house the same temperature, the air just seems colder in the winter. I literally create a nest. So I will wrap a towel around my starters and I'll avoid placing it on the cold counter. I'll put it on wood because wood is a lot warmer. I wrap the towel, I place a hot water bottle, but it's hot next to the hot water bottle, but inside is not hot at all. It's just slightly warm. So make sure you put a thick enough layer of towel so that it doesn't get too hot. And then I actually wrap it in a blanket. But for me in the summertime, I don't need to do any of that. In fact, I still don't put my starter on the countertop because my countertops are quartz and they're cold all the time. So I put it on a wooden cutting board. But if you live in a really hot place, putting it on a cold countertop might actually help to slow down the fermentation. But if you live in a really hot place as well, the other thing is you can actually just adapt to the fact that your microorganisms are going to grow faster.
In fact, in a hot environment, the rate of activity of the microorganisms increases drastically. So you either have to decrease the temperature of the environment and try to control that, or increase the amount of feed to meet the activity of the microorganisms.
So you're going to have to replenish the food more often if you're keeping it on the countertop. So when we're very first creating our sourdough starter, that's when we have to really be attuned to what the microorganisms are needing and how much we have to feed it and how often, depending on the environment that we're in. So we will have to kind of try to be adaptable to that. And then once we get our sourdough starter going and it's growing nicely and it's sort of leveled itself and become stable, then we can start to store it in the fridge, and it's a much more controlled environment and you're going to find it a lot easier. So just hang with me for these first 2 weeks. We're going to get our starter nice and strong and healthy and vibrant and vigorous, and we're going to be able to bake some amazing bread with it. So first thing, environment. Keeping your sourdough starter at a nice temperature that you're going to watch and make your own decision based on the activity of the starter. Another really quick tip that I want to mention before I forget is to make sure that you're writing things down. So if you're making changes, just to make one change at a time. So it's kind of like the scientific method, right? If you're trying to test a hypothesis, what could be causing the problem? Why isn't my sourdough starter growing? Or why is it growing too vigorously? If I change everything at once, I'm never going to know which of those factors actually caused the positive change or negative change, depending on my result. So make sure you just change one factor at a time. So last night I fed my starters, but I forgot to place the hot water bottle around it, which I have been doing every day because it's so cold here. So this morning I'm going to wait a little longer before I discard and feed, because I'm just going to let it come back to the temperature that it has been. So just be a little bit adaptable as far as temperature. So the first factor that influences our success is temperature of the environment.